Hey, it's Kyle here, and with the start of the new year, I kind of like traditionally on this channel look back at my favorite books that I read in the previous year. So this year I'll be doing 3 videos, my favorite nonfiction, my favorite fiction, and my favorite Star Wars books that I read in the previous year. This video will be focusing on my 5 favorite nonfiction books that I read in 2021. If you want to see those other videos, they'll be posted in this channel. I just don't know which order they'll be posted yet. So when this video is posted, the other videos might already be up, or they might be coming in the upcoming weeks. So just keep an eye out for them if they're not already posted. The other thing I'll mention before I get started on listing the books that made my top 5 is these are my 5 favorite books that I read in 2021, not that were published last year. Some of these books were published several years before 2021. I just happened to read them in 2021. So that being said, I'll dive right into my list of my 5 favorite nonfiction books that I read in 2021. First up at number 5 is Disobeying Hitler, German Resistance After Valkyrie by Randall Hansen. This book kind of looks at the various ways members of German society, some members of German society I should say, within the military, the general population, political figures, resisted Hitler after his assassination attempt under Operation Valkyrie, which many people know of because of the movie Valkyrie that stars Tom Cruise. Kind of an interesting look at aspect of World War II history that doesn't really get looked at that often. In the book, it kind of explores not only the ways that some members of German society attempted to resist Hitler, but also why the resistance wasn't more widespread, why lots of members of German society chose not to resist Hitler even when it became clear Germany was going to lose the war. It was a very interesting look at an aspect, again, of World War II history that doesn't really get examined a whole lot. So overall, I really enjoyed this book. Number 4 is The Last Castle by Denise Kiernan. This book looks at the history of the Biltmore, which if you're not familiar with the Biltmore is this massive house near Asheville, North Carolina that the Vanderbilt family built. In fact, the tagline to this book kind of explains it a little bit better. The epic story of love lost and American royalty in the nation's largest home. And when they say the nation's largest home, that's not an understatement. This is basically the largest private residence ever built in America. It truly was a castle built in America. A lot of people have been to the Biltmore. It's now open to the public to tour. It's an amazing house. So I grew up, I'm not that far away from Asheville, North Carolina. A lot of people that live where I do in Metro Atlanta, Asheville is a very popular like day trip or a weekend trip, probably more of a weekend trip getaway. So a lot of people go to the Biltmore. I even have some relatives who live near the Biltmore, and they specifically moved to that area. One who's a photographer, so she could actually visit the Biltmore throughout the year and kind of take photos there and stuff like that. So I grew up hearing a little bit about the Biltmore, but I didn't really know a lot about the history beyond the fact that it was built by the Vanderbilt family. And this book kind of uses the building of this giant home as a way to kind of tell the story of what the rich and powerful were like in this period of American history, what made that type of richness or powerfulness, I guess you say, possible, and how changes to society and stuff like that made projects like the Biltmore basically impossible, is one thing this book remarks on. Is basically, as the Biltmore is being built, society is beginning to change in such a way that the Biltmore is no longer feasible as a private residence, which is one reason why the Biltmore is no longer a private residence. It's open to the public for tours and stuff like that. So this book is not really like a book about just about the history of a house. A lot of people are like, well, why would I really care about that? This book is more about examining a period of American history where these families were giving immense amounts of wealth and how they were spending it and how that impacted American society and how American society changed because of it. It's a very interesting book that I really enjoyed. I wasn't sure how much I was going to enjoy it. I thought, I'm not sure. I just kind of wanted to learn a little bit more about the house, but after I read it, I was really glad I did because it was so much more than learning about the history of a certain house. Number 3 on the list is actually, I think, the last book I read in 2021, and that is The Accidental President by A.J. Baime, I'm going to guess. I don't really know how to pronounce the last name. It's B-A-I-M-E. And this looks at the presidency of Harry Truman. And specifically, it looks basically at the period of his presidency, very first few months, basically leading up to his decision to use the atomic bomb against Japan. And it kind of does a little bit after the bomb, and then that pretty much wraps up the book. You know, it's not a look at his entire life, his entire presidency. It's basically the first half of the book kind of examines the first part of Truman's life and how he rose to become FDR's vice president. And then the book examines in great details how this individual who's suddenly thrust upon the world stage is basically the person that's overseeing, you know, the wrapping up of the war against Germany, the conclusion of the war against Japan, how to wind down the American society from a war setting to the early stages of the Cold War with the Soviet Union. Really, really interesting. Some of these aspects of his presidency I was aware of. I have a degree in political science, so Truman's presidency is very important, so a lot of these elements I was aware of, but a lot of these details I was not aware of, and I really didn't know a whole lot about his background and his private life. So I found it very interesting how this very unassuming individual who nobody thought would ever be president became president at perhaps one of the most important, if not the most important point in American history. And he's just thrust upon the world stage and he has to make all these big decisions. So if you're interested in American history, I would definitely recommend The Accidental President. I really enjoyed it. Number 2 on my list is In the Garden of the Beast, or I should say In the Garden of Beast, no the in front of the beast, by Erik Larson. Erik Larson is probably my favorite nonfiction writer, so anytime I get a chance to read one of his books, I know I'm going to really love it. I'd seen this book for a few years, I just never got around to reading it. I had a lot of other World War II focused nonfiction books on my to-be-read list, and I really wanted to kind of get through those before I bought another World War II history book. But I knew once I got it, I would really enjoy it, and I really did. It was very fascinating. Erik Larson is such a talented nonfiction writer. His nonfiction books read more like a novel. You really develop attachments to the individuals depicted in the story. They start feeling more like characters than people, because he writes in such a way that it does feel like there's a plot to it, which I think is one reason why his books are very popular. A lot of people that typically maybe don't like nonfiction because they read more like a novel. It doesn't mean like he's taken away from the history of it. He's just found a way to write it in such a way that it makes the story as interesting as possible, while still telling why it's historically important. This book specifically focuses on the family of the American ambassador who is appointed to be U.S. ambassador to Germany, basically very soon after Hitler comes to power, and the world still is not sure what to make of Hitler yet. They're not sure, is he going to be a legitimate political leader? I know he seemed crazy, but maybe once he gets elected, he'll calm down. Is he going to be elected and within a few months be out of power? Nobody really knew what to make of him yet. And some people did think, oh, this guy's in danger, we need to stop him now. And basically through this ambassador and his family, specifically his daughter, you get a view of what German society was like, what the outside world was thinking, and when it began to dawn on some members of the diplomatic corps, oh, the Nazis and Hitler are evil and they need to be stopped immediately. I've really never read much about what was going on in Germany in the 1930s after Hitler came to power, especially in his early period of rule when there was a chance he could have been stopped. And this book was very fascinating. The ambassador and his daughter, who kind of do serve as the main characters of this book, are both very interesting individuals, and they both are very different, and they both view the Nazis very differently throughout the book and how their opinions change. If you like Erik Larson and you've never read this book, I would highly recommend it. If you typically don't like nonfiction, I think Erik Larson's an author you need to check out, and this book could be a book that you would enjoy. And then my favorite nonfiction book that I read in 2021 was the library book by Susan Orlean. This was a book I didn't really know what to expect of. I'd actually initially got this book as a gift for somebody else, and when they're really into the libraries, they're really into reading. I just saw this book on a nonfiction channel, so the library book. Oh, that sounds interesting. I picked it up, read the back cover. I was like, oh, I think my friend will like this. I'll get them this as a Christmas gift. And then it kind of stuck in the back of my mind. And a few months later, when I was going to get some new nonfiction books to add to my to be read pile, I thought, you know, maybe I should read this book. And my friend seemed super excited about it. She'd heard about the book before, and she was really excited to read it. I respect her opinion on books. The description sounded very interesting, so I got it. And boy, am I glad I got it. This book explores the burning of the public library in Los Angeles, and then it uses that event to kind of explore the histories of libraries, the history of the LA library, why libraries and books are so important, and at the same time it explores how this fire happened, who the individual might have been responsible for, and kind of, again, then kind of goes forward to what this event says about the role of libraries in society in general. I think for somebody that loves books and loves libraries, this is a must read. If you love to read, if you love libraries, read this book. It is amazing. I learned so much about the development of the modern library that I did not know before I read this book. I'd never heard about this event at the LA library burning down. I believe it was in the 1980s, if I remember correctly. Let me look real quick. 1986, I was correct. I never heard of this event before. So just reading about this devastating fire, which is one of the biggest library fires in world history. So many books were destroyed. How the community rallied behind the library system after this event to try to save as many books as possible and rebuild the library. The kind of mystery behind it, like what caused the fire, who caused the fire, why did they start the fire, did they start the fire? It's so many things. There's an element of true crime to it. There's an element of just like the history, books and history of libraries. There's kind of a modern look at what libraries mean to American society, world society in general, what it means for cities, individuals, stuff like that. Again, if you love to read, if you love libraries, you need to read the library book by Susan Orlean. I highly, highly recommend it. So those are my 5 favorite nonfiction books that I read in 2021. In the comment section below, let me know what was your favorite nonfiction book that you read in 2021. Interested in see what responses I get. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. I really appreciate it. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate the support. Hope you enjoyed this video. Happy reading, and I'll see you the next time.